Hello there, my very good friends. Thank you for joining us for today's after news video. Kind of knew this one was coming because as soon as it was revealed yesterday that Jon Moxley was going to appear on the sessions with his wife Renee Paquette, and yes, he was going to talk about a certain Mr. Phil Brooks, you knew some headlines were going to come out of it, and the headlines have come out of it, hence why I'm sitting here in this chair on my own with nobody to join me like a loser. Gonna run through the whole thing for you. So basically, going into this, yeah, you knew the Punk stuff was going to be the biggest headliner, and that's certainly the case. They start off by talking about this whole situation. If you need to be brought up to speed on that one, first of all, where have you been living for the past week? But basically, CM Punk did a whole Instagram post that he quickly deleted last week. It was based on a message board, I almost said newsletter, a message board post that Dave Meltzer had made alleging that CM Punk sent a legal letter to AEW in the middle of his program with Moxley when they did the squash, alleging that he wasn't cleared to compete, blah 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 blah. He called Moxley a liar, said that Moxley had refused to lose to him, and that he didn't necessarily want to do this Rocky 3 storyline, that he'd never seen all of that stuff. Check the videos, we did them last week. However, Moxley is straight up asked about this by Renee straight away. And I'll just read you what he said. When he's asked if he's anything he'd like to address, anything he'd like to talk about, he said no, because nothing has unfolded. It's effing annoying. Just because somebody said some stupid shit on social media, like, that's not news. But it is, and it ends up being a thing. Yeah, I mean, people like us are partly responsible for that, John. Very sorry indeed. But he goes on, and of course he swears a lot. It's Jon Moxley. I don't want to get dragged into this dumb shit. I could effing unload on a lot of effing people right now. And when I start getting dragged into this, it tempts me to do that. But I'm not going to effing sink to that level. I will say this. I'm just going to give you a tidbit of information from my point of view. The entire summer, I was not under contract. No contract, free agent. That was reported last year, around about the time Moxley did sign his new contract, which I believe was in September, and it was PW Insider's Mike Johnson that broke that story. So that was kind of sort of already out there, but Moxley goes on and he contextualizes a little bit on the sessions here. Just kind of uses it as the crux for the whole point. He talks about wrestling El Desperado, the New Japan star, over SummerSlam weekend. He talks about how technically he could have walked into SummerSlam with the AEW World title over his shoulder if he was that way inclined. Obviously, he didn't do that. But I'll continue. I'll go over some more stuff. Moxley said he spoke about not wanting to put all of his life's information out there, which is understandable, and then said, I was not under contract. The reason being for that, and this is interesting, if you're curious, is because I got out of rehab and my contract was coming up. They extended it for the time I missed. Cool. I'm glad they did that, actually. I'm glad they did that because I didn't want to feel like I owed them anything. So they extended it a little bit. It was coming up. They're talking to me about it. The last thing I wanted to do when I first got out of rehab, because everyone was telling me, because Logic was telling me that don't go back to wrestle, you're just going to fall in the same habits. So he continues. He talks about some of the fun stuff he'd been doing with the Blackpool Combat Club. Then he gets back to CM Punk, which is why you're here, I know, and remaking that commitment to AEW. He says, I was not in a hurry to make any kind of grand commitment. That being said, during this time, the night in effing What's His Dick's Talking About, calling CM Punk What's His Dick. Funny. It was in Indianapolis. Not Minneapolis. Minneapolis. It was in Minneapolis. I'm tripping over myself there, but there you go. It was the night he came back and he was hopping around on one foot, bumping around the inner circle or whatever, after me and Jericho had wrestled. A badass match, by the way. So we're talking about stuff. Now keep in mind, at this time, this whole point, I basically don't work there. For all intents and purposes, I don't even work there. Tony is not my boss. I don't have to even be in this room while he's talking to CM Punk about future plans. I don't have to do shit. So me even being in this room and offering and agreeing to do a storyline that puts you over at the pay-per-view, if anything, I'm bending over backwards for Tony and for this dude, that being Punk, and for the company and for everyone. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to do shit. If anything, I was bending over backwards. So that's it. That's not even controversial. I'm just telling you. So I think when the news that Jon was going to be on the sessions came out, maybe some people were expecting something a bit more controversial, like when he jumped on Talk Is Jericho after leaving WWE. That interview was basically a fireball. That's not the case here, obviously, because I think when Jon just comes on these things, he just tells the truth. He just tells the truth. And he gives his honest version of the events. And this, in his situation, is the honest version of events. You can certainly see why someone who is technically not under contract with the promotion would see him kind of putting someone else over and doing a favor and running this storyline as, that's a favor. That's the kind of, in his words, bending over backwards to help out. So knowing that, you can see why he would be irritated with CM Punk's claims in the Instagram post, and you can understand both sides there. Punk spoke about not being medically cleared and stuff when they did the initial squash match. Obviously, that would have nothing to do with Moxley, presumably, and it's not covered here or whatever. So that's another aspect of it to consider. That's Punk's side of it, of course. Moxley would have had nothing to do with clearing him or not. So, here we are. He does continue a little bit. There's all kinds of interesting stuff on this podcast, as you'd imagine. But at one point, I'll read this story about drama in AEW because a lot of that has revolved around CM Punk in particular recently. Moxley said, "I will say this. I don't think I've ever had anything even remotely negative to say about AEW, but I will say this. As an observer, it seems like, I spent 8 years on the indies, a couple years in WWE developmental, spent 8 years in WWE. I have never seen so much BS drama in one place in my entire effing life. I hate to say it, but it's I don't know if it's because of the age of social media, it gets blown out of proportion. One person types a stupid effing drunk tweet and all of a sudden it's all anyone wants to talk about. But there you go, saying AEW is, and I quote, he has never seen so much BS drama in one place in his entire effing life. And I can only imagine that his stance on that is informed, at least partly, by this whole CM Punk debacle. It's been the kind of first time we've really heard Moxley's name brought up as one of these great public drama debates. And, with the Wade Keller report that came out yesterday that we covered on this morning's news video, where he talks about the volume of people that Punk doesn't get along with, the high level in AEW, the situation just continues to evolve. It continues to snowball. For sure, CM Punk doesn't make a lot of friends in pro wrestling. That is not something that was necessarily a secret before he came back, and now it has returned to the forefront of public conversation. But there you go, Jon Moxley's side of all of this is out there now. He could not really have put this any more plainly. He's frank, he's honest, he doesn't tiptoe around it or anything like that. Doesn't try and spin you a yarn. So you can make of it what you will. You can now judge this now that it's in the public domain and make up your own mind on this whole situation that is unraveling. It does seem very unlikely, however, that CM Punk is exactly going to be welcomed back to AEW with open arms anytime soon. The odds of that diminish with every new report. But hey, thank you for joining us for this run through of Jon Moxley on the sessions, at least concerning AEW and CM Punk. There's some interesting stuff in there for sure. Maybe not as attacky, is that even a word, as some people might have wanted, but I think this is about what I expected, and it's an entertaining, he calls him what's his dick. Come on, if you can't appreciate that, what can you appreciate in life, friends? Anyway, let us know what you think down in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter at Andy H. Murray. That's my account. The H stands for hey, like Jon Moxley and CM Punk, and I wish they got along a bit better. This is all very sad. Follow us on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE as well. This has been a bit of a rambling mess, but I'll see you later. Thank you.